Before your eyes is a young woman who is both beautiful and incredibly talented. While most people tend to abandon old vehicles that worn out and no longer able to work, she has a completely different passion, searching for rusty old vehicles that most people would only see as scrap metal. To many people, these vehicles are nothing more than piles of useless metal, but to her, they represent opportunity, projects with hidden potential waiting to be brought back to life. And today, she has found a very interesting target. It is a large truck that appears to have been sitting unused for a long time. At first glance, it is easy to see that the vehicle has gone through many years of service. The paint has almost completely faded away, large areas of metal have been heavily oxidized, and rust covers many parts of the body. Scratches and signs of wear can be seen all over the truck. Based on my observation and experience, I estimate that this truck has a carrying capacity of around 15 tons. For people who work in vehicle restoration, pricing is never based on appearance alone, and this young woman is no different. She begins inspecting the truck very carefully. First comes the exterior, evaluating the condition of the frame, the body panels, and the overall level of corrosion. Next is the mechanical system, the most important factor in determining future restoration costs. She opens the engine compartment and carefully checks every detail, looking for leaks, inspecting hoses, electrical components, and assessing whether the engine still has the potential to run properly. Then she moves on to the interior. As soon as the door opens, the condition inside tells its own story. The seats are old and worn out, many parts are peeling apart, the dashboard is covered in dust, and several components appear to have little or no remaining value. The interior gives the impression that this truck completed its mission a long time ago. But what makes her different is that she does not judge the truck by its current condition. She sees restoration potential. After completing the inspection, she moves to the most important stage, negotiating the price. Naturally, the owner wants to sell at the highest price possible. Meanwhile, she wants to purchase the truck at the lowest reasonable price to ensure profit after restoration. The negotiation begins. The owner explains why the truck still deserves a good price. The engine remains original, the structure is solid, and with proper repairs, it could continue operating for many more years. She responds by pointing out the reality. The paint is completely worn out, many components will need replacement, and the restoration costs will not be small, not to mention the time and effort involved. The discussion continues for a while, and finally, they reach an agreement. The truck is sold to her for $2,500. To be fair, considering the truck's current condition, this is actually a very reasonable price. From a practical point of view, the vehicle has already suffered significant deterioration. The body is old, the surface is covered with rust, the interior has very little remaining value. Many people would even say that if sold as scrap metal, the truck might only be worth around $10. But what truly creates the difference is not the truck itself, it is the person who owns it. Because when an old machine ends up in the hands of someone who understands its real value, that value can increase dramatically. To this young woman, this is not a discarded truck. This is a heavy-duty vehicle with a strong foundation. Even though its appearance is old, worn out, and unattractive, the overall structure still has the potential to be saved. All it needs is proper mechanical maintenance. Refreshing the engine, restoring the paint, replacing worn-out components, cleaning and rebuilding the interior, and completing the exterior restoration. Once all of that is done, the truck could regain the powerful appearance it once had. And at that point, its value would change completely. According to her estimate, after a full restoration, the truck could be sold for around $5,000, or even more if she finds the right buyer. Of course, that number does not include the time, effort, and unexpected costs that may appear during the restoration process. But that is exactly what makes vehicle restoration so exciting. No one can predict the final result. You have to be willing to take risks. You have to see value where others only see something ready to be thrown away. That is also what separates an ordinary buyer from someone who truly understands restoration. To outsiders, this may look like an old truck waiting to be sold as scrap, but to her, It is the beginning of a new opportunity. Once the restoration is complete, the truck will not only look better, it may also return to reliable working condition. The rust will disappear. Fresh paint will completely transform its appearance. The worn interior will be renewed. The engine will receive careful attention to bring back its performance. Every small detail will contribute to rebuilding the vehicle, and that process is what creates value. Many people believe buying old vehicles and repairing them is simple, but reality is completely different. You need experience, you need knowledge, you need patience, and most importantly, you need the ability to see potential in things that others consider worthless. If everything goes smoothly, this truck could easily double its value after restoration. But even if the profit is not huge, bringing a machine back to life after everyone believed its journey was over is already something meaningful. One old truck, one bold decision, and one opportunity to turn something that seemed worthless into something valuable. This is truly an exciting deal for this young woman. Will this rusty old truck be brought back to life and regain its value? Let's wait and see the final result. Watching her replace the tire made me realize just how demanding this kind of work really is. Even from the outside, it is easy to see that this task requires a great deal of strength and patience. Especially on a large truck, each tire is extremely heavy and difficult to handle. Removing and installing them is not only about technique, but also requires focus and physical endurance. Every movement she makes shows that this is not her first time doing this kind of work. There is no rushing, no unnecessary motions. Everything is done with confidence and in a clear sequence. Watching the way she works makes me genuinely admire her, because this is the type of job that many people would find exhausting if they had to do it for long periods of time. Yet she continues with patience and enthusiasm. Perhaps the reason she has stayed committed to this work is not simply about making money. I think she truly enjoys restoring vehicles, because only someone who really loves this type of work could spend hours dealing with small details, accepting dirt, grease, and physically demanding tasks like these. Vehicle restoration may look simple from the outside, but in reality, it is completely different. Sometimes parts need to be removed and reinstalled multiple times. Sometimes problems need to be checked again and again before the real cause is discovered. Some vehicles even reveal new issues after appearing to be fully repaired. And staying committed to this work for a long time certainly requires a lot of persistence. What about you? What do you think about her working ability? In your opinion, what stands out the most? Her hard work, attention to detail, or her determination? If you have your own thoughts, don't hesitate to leave a comment and share them with everyone. After completing the tire replacement, she moved on to another important stage. This time, she started checking the truck's electrical system. This is considered one of the most important parts of any vehicle, because no matter how good the engine is, if the electrical system has problems, the vehicle cannot operate reliably. And as usual, before performing deeper inspections, she decided to replace the battery. This is a common step when restoring vehicles that have been sitting unused for a long time. After long periods without operation, old batteries often lose their ability to hold charge or provide stable power to the system. If the power source is unstable, diagnosing problems accurately becomes much more difficult. After installing a new battery, the truck finally had power again. Now the electrical system could be inspected more thoroughly. She began checking the signals, checking the wiring, checking power delivery, and inspecting areas that showed signs of unusual behavior. Because the goal of the inspection is not simply to make the vehicle run, it is to find the real source of the problem. If you only repair the visible symptoms and ignore the underlying issue, the same problem can easily return later. And of course, only after identifying the exact fault can she fully solve the problem. That is the difference between temporary repair and true restoration. Now the question is, after restoring power to the electrical system, will the truck finally return to normal operation? Or are there still more problems waiting ahead? Let's continue following this restoration journey and find out. After restoring power and completing the initial electrical inspection, she moved on to the next stage, checking each electrical function of the truck in detail. To many people, a vehicle's electrical system may not seem very complicated from the outside. Whether the lights turn on, whether the horn works, whether the turn signals flash properly, whether the windshield wipers still operate, or simply whether the vehicle can start. But in reality, behind these seemingly simple functions lies an entire system connected together. Just one faulty point can cause multiple components to stop working, and that is exactly why she has to inspect everything step by step. She starts with the most basic components. First comes the horn system. After restoring power, she tests it to check its response. Although it seems like a small feature, it also helps evaluate whether electrical power is being delivered correctly throughout the vehicle. Next comes the lighting system. Headlights, indicator lights, signal lights. Each function is tested one by one. At first, several lights do not respond, but after checking the wiring and electrical connections, many functions begin showing signs of life again. Then she moves on to inspect the turn signal system. This is an important part because it directly affects future operation and safety. Each left and right signal is checked carefully. At times, the signals behave inconsistently, forcing her to repeat the inspection several times to narrow down the cause. Next comes the windshield wiper system. This is a component many people often overlook during restoration, but for her, everything needs to work exactly as intended. After checking the power supply and operating mechanism, the wiper system gradually starts responding again. The deeper she goes into the inspection, the more time it takes, because the hardest part of electrical work is not replacing parts, it is finding the real cause. A small issue can sometimes turn into hours of diagnosis. A loose connector, a corroded contact point, a worn electrical wire, any of these can affect the entire system. That is why she never rushes. She checks each section, marks each area, and eliminates possibilities one by one. After spending quite a while inspecting and making adjustments, results finally begin to appear. One by one, the truck's electrical functions start coming back to life. The horn works again, the lights turn on, the turn signals become more stable, the windshield wipers begin responding. Watching each system return makes the truck seem alive again. However, there is still one major problem left unsolved. That problem was the starting system. Even though many electrical components had started working again, the truck still could not start as expected. This was the real challenge. She shifted her full attention to the engine starting system. Because if the truck could not start, then all of the previous work was still incomplete. At this point, she began carrying out a deeper inspection. Power supply to the starting system, electrical connections, wiring. Each area was examined carefully. One possible explanation was that there could be an interruption somewhere in the electrical circuit after the truck had been sitting unused for such a long time. But that was only one possibility. Another possibility was that the starter motor or another component related to the starting process was experiencing a problem. Since the exact cause had not been identified yet, she did not rush to replace anything. Instead, she continued with a structured inspection process. Because her goal was not simply to make the truck run temporarily. Her goal was to find the actual cause and solve the problem completely. That is what separates true restoration from a quick repair. Time continued to pass. The surroundings slowly became quieter. Only the sound of tools and repeated inspections remained. She continued working patiently, without overlooking any details. Because sometimes one very small issue can prevent an entire vehicle from starting. Each completed inspection brought her one step closer to the answer. That is also what makes vehicle restoration so interesting. It is not only about repairing, it is about discovering the cause and bringing everything back to the best condition possible. And now, the biggest question still remains. Is the problem hidden somewhere in the electrical system? Or is the starting system facing a more serious issue? And after carrying out deeper repairs, will she finally be able to bring the engine back to life? Let's continue following this restoration journey and find out in the next part. Her hands move quickly and with confidence. Every action flows smoothly, neatly, and in a clear sequence. Just by watching for a short time, you can feel that she has spent a lot of time doing this kind of work, from the way she handles the tools, to the way she inspects each detail, and the way she works on every part of the truck. Everything shows familiarity and concentration. What impressed me was not the speed, it was the confidence behind each movement. Some jobs may look simple from the outside, but once you actually try them, you realize how much experience they require, especially when working on old vehicles that have been sitting unused for a long time. There is no ready-made answer. There is no single process that works for every situation. Every vehicle has a different condition. Some only require replacing a few small parts. Others need much deeper inspection before the real cause can be found. That is why observation and problem-solving skills are so important. Watching the way she works, I personally feel that she seems to have a great deal of practical experience. Not because she works quickly, but because she never appears rushed. She takes time to inspect. She is willing to repeat the process if necessary, and she tries to identify the actual cause before deciding on a solution. Those are often signs of someone who has spent a meaningful amount of time doing this type of work. Of course, it is difficult to accurately judge someone's professional level from just one video. But at the very least, what she shows reflects seriousness and dedication to her work, and that is something worth appreciating. What makes vehicle restoration interesting is that the final result does not depend only on physical effort. It also depends on experience, patience, observation, and making the right decisions at the right time. Sometimes missing one small detail can force the entire repair process to start over. Maybe that is why so many people are watching restoration videos, because viewers are not only watching repairs happen, they are also watching how the person thinks and solves problems. So what about you? After watching her work, what do you think? What impressed you the most? Her persistence, her focus, or the way she handled unexpected problems? Do you think her work shows strong experience, or do you think there is still room for improvement? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Who knows, your feedback might eventually reach her. And maybe your words will become motivation for her to continue doing what she loves. And here's a more interesting question. If one day your own vehicle unexpectedly broke down, after watching the way she works, would you trust her to repair your vehicle? Would you feel confident in the way she diagnoses and handles problems? Or would you want to watch more before making that decision? Leave your thoughts below. I'm curious to know what everyone thinks, and maybe different opinions will help us understand this fascinating world of vehicle restoration even better. Even though the starting system had begun working smoothly again, the truck still refused to start. That created a serious challenge for her. Normally, once people hear the starter working again, they would assume the vehicle is only a few steps away from running. But reality was not that simple. A vehicle can crank normally and still fail to start because many other factors may be involved. That was when she realized she needed to inspect more deeply. At this point, it was no longer just about the electrical system or the starting system. There could be another component somewhere interrupting the entire process. So she continued working, one step at a time. With the same patience she had shown from the beginning, she began checking additional components. Watching the way she worked, I noticed that she removed and replaced a certain part. To be honest, I do not actually know the name of that component. Maybe some of you know more about it. If anyone recognizes that part, feel free to leave a comment and let me know. I think it would be interesting if we could all learn something from each other. After finishing that inspection, she moved on to another task. She added more fuel, because if the truck had been sitting unused for a long time, or if the remaining fuel was insufficient, starting the engine could become difficult. At the very least, making sure the fuel supply was adequate would eliminate one more possible cause. She carefully added fuel, then returned to the driver's seat and tried starting it again. Everyone seemed to be waiting for something to happen. Just hearing the engine come back to life would have made all of the effort feel worthwhile. But things still did not go as expected. The truck remained still, no response, no sign that it was ready to run. The first attempt, unsuccessful. The next attempt, still the same. At that moment, I thought she might start feeling disappointed, or at least become discouraged. After spending so much time inspecting, replacing parts, and trying different solutions, the result still had not appeared. But what surprised me was her reaction. No rushing, no frustration, no signs of giving up. She simply continued observing, continued inspecting, continued searching for the cause, still keeping the same calm, working rhythm from the beginning. Watching that made me think. Maybe what helps someone go further is not always talent. Sometimes it is simply the ability to keep going, even when results do not come immediately. I believe that with this kind of attitude, even if it takes longer than expected, she will continue searching for the solution. And who knows, maybe the answer is already closer than it seems. And in reality, that idea does not apply only to vehicle restoration. I think it is true in life as well. Not everything happens according to plan. Sometimes we put in a great deal of effort, but the results still do not come. Some challenges last much longer than we expect. Some goals seem within reach, only for us to realize we need to start over again. Sometimes, the hardest part is not the work itself. It is keeping the strength to continue. I have heard many stories about people who faced difficult circumstances but kept moving forward. Not because they never struggled, but because they did not allow those difficulties to decide their entire future. In Vietnam after the war, many families had to live with consequences that lasted across generations. Among them were people born into difficult conditions and facing challenges in health and daily life. Their path was certainly not the same as most people, but what many people admire is not the hardship itself. It is the way they continued learning, working, creating, and building their lives in their own way. Some became business owners, some became skilled craftsmen, some became people who inspired others. Those achievements did not erase the difficulties they faced, but they showed that people can create value in many different ways. And I truly respect that. I believe many of you have also met or known people like this. Maybe they did not begin with the same advantages as others, but the way they faced life taught us something meaningful. Everyone may see these stories differently, but personally, whenever I see someone continue moving forward through difficult challenges, I find it deeply admirable. Now back to the truck. At this moment, it still has not started, but this journey does not feel finished yet. And maybe these unsuccessful attempts today will become the foundation for the moment when the engine finally comes back to life. Maybe it will take more time, maybe more problems will appear. But as long as she keeps searching for answers, there is still a chance, just like in life. Success does not always arrive on the first attempt. Sometimes what creates the difference is simply refusing to stop. So what about you? Do you agree with this way of thinking? In your opinion, what matters more, talent or persistence? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I would really love to hear different perspectives from everyone. Bạn dịch này đã giữ nhịp cao trào, suy ngẫm, kêu gọi bình luận, phù hợp để nối tiếp video phục hồi xe. And finally, after all of the effort and determination, the truck came back to life. That moment truly made every second of waiting feel worthwhile. After countless inspections, countless starting attempts, and many rounds of taking things apart and checking everything again, the engine finally responded. Its powerful sound echoed through the air, marking the return of a machine that had seemed silent for so long. But this was more than just the sound of an engine starting. It felt like a reward for persistence and refusing to give up. Watching that moment made me realize that all of her hard work had finally paid off. From spending hours inspecting the electrical system, searching for hidden causes, trying, adjusting, and trying again, even through the moments when it seemed impossible for the truck to run again. Everything had led to this moment. What impressed me the most was not simply that the truck started, it was the way she reached that result. No rushing, no giving up, no searching for shortcuts. Instead, she patiently worked through each step and kept moving forward. Maybe that is what makes vehicle restoration so fascinating, because the value is not only in the final result, it is also in the journey behind it. To many people, this was just an old truck, but to her, it was an opportunity, a challenge, and a result created through time, effort, and commitment. I truly hope that after completing the remaining work, this truck can be sold at a great price, not only because of profit, but because that would be a fair reward for all the effort she invested. Because behind every successful restoration project are many hours of work, patience, knowledge, and countless rounds of testing and repairing. We may only watch a few minutes in a video, but in reality, the work behind it often takes much longer. And I think that effort deserves appreciation. This journey also left me with an interesting feeling. Sometimes what makes us happiest is not victory itself. It is the moment when effort finally turns into results, from an old worn-out truck, from a silent engine, to the moment everything comes back to life. That feeling is truly special. And now our journey today has come to an end. Thank you all so much for staying with us from the beginning to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And thank you for experiencing every moment of this restoration journey together with us. I hope today's video gave you a memorable experience. If you enjoy content like this, don't forget to follow along so you do not miss the next restoration adventure. Goodbye, and I'll see all of you again.